This is the Volkswagen Passat Alltrack Premium, and it's one of a shrinking number of wagons that you see on the road these days. I mean, SUVs have pretty well stitched up this market. But if you take one of these for a test drive, you might have second thoughts about getting into a big SUV. This latest version of the Passat has been around for about 7 years or so, but it still looks really fresh and really premium, and it's a very contemporary, if slightly conservative design. But I mean, it's timeless. They could release this car this year and honestly, it would probably look much the same. It does look a little bit like an Audi A4. In fact, if you swap the badges around, I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to tell them apart. I've always been a bit of a fan of VW's sort of minimal looking front ends, and they've done a really good job on the Passat with the lights just sort of wrapped around the corners there just nicely up at a little bit of an angle, and the front fog lights look really good too, and I love the sequential indicators, of course. The wheels are 19 inches and they come standard on this premium edition. They actually even have a name too, Albertville. I've been saying this about a lot of cars lately, but there are a lot of really good looking rear ends out there, and the Passat is no exception, especially with the rear light clusters. I think they look awesome. The boot is 650 litres and it expands to 1,780 with the rear seats down. There is a full-size spare tyre underneath the floor, which is great because if you're off-road in this all-wheel drive car, a space-saver spare isn't going to be much use. As the 162 name suggests, the 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine outputs 162 kilowatts of power and 350 newton meters of torque. Fuel economy is a pretty good 8.1 litres per 100 kilometres. The interior of this car looks great. It looks really premium. Now, by default, I tend to gravitate towards black interiors, but this two-tone interior in Mistral Grey I think looks awesome. It has such a premium feel to it, and this is not really a premium priced car despite the name. The center console screen in this premium grade car is pretty good. It's 9.2 inches, and look, it's not as good as you'd find in an Audi. It's just not as sharp, and the menus are a little bit clunky to use, and the maps and the navigation system just are a bit laggy and they just don't look nearly as good. But there is wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, so if you're after navigation, I'd suggest using your phone. Despite having wireless connectivity for your phone, there is no wireless charging, and you're going to need a USB-C cable to charge your phone. I love the climate control design in this car. There are no switches or dials. It's all touch sensitive, and you can slide your finger along to adjust the fan speed and the temperature. It's a really nice design. The premium Passat Alltracks get a full digital instrument cluster, which you can tell is related to an Audi, but it's just not quite as good as the one you find in an Audi. There is a bit of customization available, and look, the design is good, but again, like the center console screen, the maps just aren't as sharp and are a little bit laggy. The steering wheel, however, is brilliant. It has a really great feel to it. It's leather wrapped and has a few different textures to it, and a nice flat bottom. Has a really good feel, and the paddle shifters on the back are the same as the ones that you find in an Audi. The seats are very comfortable. They are leather appointed, which I had to look up what that means. It actually means it's a combination of real and fake leather, but I can't actually tell which is which. There's 12 ways of electric adjustment. They are heated and ventilated, and there's also a massage function. Backseat passengers also get rear climate control and that amazing panoramic sunroof. There's been a bit of heated discussion on my YouTube channel lately about the Subaru Outback and its perceived lack of power, and look, I have to agree, it could probably use a turbocharger. Apparently the overseas models get it, we miss out on it here. But the Passat does come with a turbocharger, and as such, it does have a bit more zip to it. It gets up hills really quite easily, and you're certainly not lacking for any power when it comes to overtaking on the highway. But of course, the most expensive Outback is the same price as the cheapest Passat. Around town, the all-wheel drive performance of the Passat feels great. It drives really, really well. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19 restrictions, I'm not allowed to take this car off-road at the moment, so we're stuck with suburban roads for this test today. One thing that this car does have that its Audi stablemates have as well, and that is just a bit of turbo lag when you put your foot down. It just takes a moment to really get going, and it's a little bit disconcerting until you get used to it, but it's it's an interesting little quirk that I've found in pretty much every Audi and now Volkswagen that I've test driven. The steering is a little bit on the numb side. I'm not really getting much in the way of feel from it at all, and it doesn't seem to change with whatever drive mode I'm in. Having said that, I mean, the car will go where you point it, but I'm just not getting the amount of feedback that I'd like. There is just a little bit of a sort of drone about the engine, and those higher revs, it does make a little bit of a breathless kind of noise. It's not incredibly off-putting, but it's just there. Comparing this car to a small or medium SUV, I actually wonder what it is that you're really gaining in an SUV. I mean, maybe a little bit of extra storage space, but this car's lower center of gravity and better driving dynamics really do make it a much more pleasant car to drive. Seating position feels good, if somewhat unremarkable. The suspension is probably a little bit on the firm side, but you do expect that from an SUV style vehicle. But in terms of cars that you can take on a long family road trip with a bit of light off-roading, then the Volkswagen Passat Alltrack Premium definitely makes the grade.